Grow Great is a city government leadership podcast with Lisa Norris and me, Randy Cantrell. Each week we share insights, experiences, and wisdom to help you and your leadership grow great. Our website is growgreat.com. So I'm in a session with a client the other day, and the topic of, we typically call it managing up, comes into the conversation. And of course, Lisa, you and we've had countless conversations about being truth tellers and the value of a truth teller to a leader and the value that truth tellers serve us when we're in leadership. So it's reciprocal. And the summation of the conversation was, what do you feel like you owe your boss? What truth do you feel like you owe your boss? Do you feel like your boss deserves to know this, that, or the other? And the specifics are irrelevant. And I've used, it's a crude example, I know, but I've used the example of doing for others what they can't do for themselves with, you know, the gentleman that comes in the church service and his fly's unzipped, and I lean forward. He sits right in front of me, and I lean forward and I tell him, your fly's unzipped. And it's not that he's stupid. It's not that he can't do it. It's not that he doesn't know how to do it. He's just unaware that his fly's open. So I could spare him the embarrassment. And the way I'm wired, I didn't hesitate. I just leaned forward and whispered in his ear, you know, your fly's open. And I use that example with the client. So it brings up the topic of when our boss, whomever they may be, and when we ourselves as leaders, what value do we put in people that will tell us the truth? And that truth could be something as innocuous as somebody's frustration. It could be, we have a meeting with our leadership team in our department, and we think we're being clear. And there's a few questions that get asked, but everybody goes on their merry way. Mm-hmm. And perhaps, you know, they do this thing, and we're not happy. And now they're puzzled. Okay, does anybody say anything? And so I was telling this client about the Abilene paradox. And if you've not heard about the Abilene paradox, the real, I'm going to dumb it down. And it's Abilene, Texas. It's the Abilene paradox. You've got a family out in the country. Abilene's miles and miles and miles away. It's a lazy day. And they're trying to figure out what do they want to do. And somebody says, well, how about we anybody want to go to Abilene? And next thing you know, they're all in the car and they go to Abilene. Well, it's just a hot, horrible day. And they get back home and they're just exhausted, only to discover nobody wanted to go to Abilene in the first place, but nobody said anything. Yeah. And so this author came up with, he called it the Abilene paradox. And we do it in business all the time. We do it in organizations all the time. We end up going somewhere that none of us wanted to go because nobody piped up. Nobody said anything because we don't have truth tellers that will tell the truth and have the courage to do that and know how to do that. So I don't know. What are you thinking?
Well, one, you talked about managing up, and specifically, I think we have an accountability as leaders to be truth tellers to our bosses. Now, it doesn't have to be vicious, and it doesn't have to be a complaint session. Those are different things. But to bring wisdom to the conversation or ask things, you always call it naive curiosity. Can I ask a quick question? Has this been already addressed at the why? I've done that before. Tell me again why we're doing it. Why do we need it? Whatever it is, right? What is the value you think it will add, or things like that, just to get them thinking about it and saying it out loud and going, well, I don't know. I was told I thought we had to, you know, or whatever it is. You usually get clarity through that. Again, it's funny because we always talk about Workday, but my recent example, generally, whether it's Workday related or not, same thing happened. I just hopped on what we call a work stream call. This is where the whole group, including consultants, so our consulting team who's implementing, and many of our team members, some are directors, some are not directors, probably a team of about, I don't know, 8 to 12 people. And it's been a constant turnover of the consultant. This is the fifth consultant we've had on this particular work stream. And she's new and she's showing them basically like an upload. We need to do this upload, and here's the fields you need to pull. Well, I know we've addressed this 9 ways to Sunday with the past consultants, and I'm watching and listening because she's new, and I hopped on late. So, I kind of watched there's nobody saying a word. So she's in there going, okay, in this field, we need this. And in this field, we need this. And then when you get it for the customer account, we need this. And if you have more than, she's just going through really fast. It is crickets. Well, if anybody knows anything, like in leadership, Randy, you and I have talked about, if there's silence in the room from your troops, there is a bigger problem. I mean, nobody is engaging, and I've got directors on the call, like I said, and regular, like professional staff on the call, down to the tactical person, the person who's doing the entry. And I let it go about 10 minutes, and I finally said, guys, hold on for 1 second. Prack's our consultant. I said, I need to ask a quick question. Does everybody understand what Prack is telling you and why we need this? Immediately, one of my directors is like, spot on. I have no idea what we're talking about. And then the person who's usually most involved, which is our lead, she goes, Lisa, I'm just trying to listen. I have no idea what we need or why we need this. I think we've already done this, but I'm just trying to, Prack is a good teacher, and I'm just trying to listen. I just didn't understand it. And I said, Prack, can you help us understand what we're doing and why we're doing it? And so she goes through it, says it again. I said, team, does that help? Nothing. I mean, not. And so I went, so-and-so, does that help? Not a word. So-and-so, does that help? Not a word. And I'm like, guys, I'm asking a question. Do you know what we're doing and why? They had no idea. So I had to completely stop the conversation. I said, practice is no reflection on you. This team has turned over 5 times in 4 months. We keep going back to the same things. We need to revamp and regroup. And so I said, now here's the question. Team, do you want her to consider going forward with this today's session? We have a half hour left. Or do we want to stop and regroup? They decided, one person spoke up, let's go ahead and continue with what she had on the plate, because I'll still try to glean stuff while we have her time. And then we need to revamp, and I escalated. The point to that being, I had 2 directors on the call at the same time that didn't understand it,
But
whether
didn't
they
say
didn't feel
anything.
comfortable or they're trying to be respectful, right? That it's not necessarily a fault, but there's not a
That's
lot of
right.
people willing to brave the question of, do you understand it? Because I know through leadership, if your team is silent, now if they're listening and it's instruction based, that's one thing. But she kept asking questions and nobody was responding. So, one, we've got disengagement, or 2, there's a lack of understanding and they can't respond because it's not making sense. And they're hoping somebody else will respond. In this case, we're completely revamping, and I escalated it up and said, we've got to do this different. This needs to be a different way. And I went all the way up to the VP because we've had turnover. But to the point, that's a general. There's so many people unwilling to take a risk to just ask a pretty simple question. Do you understand what she's talking about? That's a pretty simple question. But Randy, I didn't understand what she was talking about. And I've sat on these meetings,
Right.
and I'm like,
Right.
she was really very detailed, giving examples. But I'm like, why do we need this at this point? We're going live in 4 months. Like, why are we doing an upload right now? It just didn't make sense to me. We've done 5 uploads previously. Why can't we use the ones we've done or add to them? So anyway, that was one example. But to your point specifically of managing up, I think you do have to use caution about knowing when to ask the question and knowing when to listen, because there is value to both, and timing is critical. Trust is critical. But I don't want to be afraid. I've asked when we've been in meetings before, it's gone 2 ways. One, when I was newer in this role up in city manager's office, I'm a managing director for our listeners, and it's kind of similar to an ACM, but brand new in role. I'd been an HR director for 27 years. It's different. So for several months, I just listened and tried to understand because it was topics I knew nothing about. And I didn't want to just ask a question for the sake of participating. I was really trying to understand content, right? But as I got further along, there would be questions unaddressed that I would ask, help me understand what was the reason we're doing this so that I can better understand where we're trying to get to. What's our ideal outcome? What are you hoping to achieve? And then that may be all I asked, but there would be times where they're like, well, why are we doing this? Or what are we doing? What are we doing and why are we doing it? And other times they'd have a great answer and it provided clarity. But you can't be afraid to ask for the appearance of being stupid. That's why I see the most people that aren't self-confident will not want to ask because they don't want to be seen as something less or an assumption made about them.
Which is why I labeled curiosity naive curiosity. You've got to be willing to be naive and show yourself as being that naive.
Yeah, and you can't keep asking the
Now,
questions.
I have no problem with it because I already know that I'm not the smartest guy in the room already. So I got nothing to prove and I got nothing to lose. So, and I'm like, I'm not leaving this meeting with frustration and not understanding. I'm going to understand. I don't care if I look stupid or not, but I know that it's a hurdle for many people. I get it.
And I think that the point here is asking the questions is key. And I learned a lot of that from you. It's not about giving your advice in the meeting. It's about asking questions to clarify something in your head. I'll call it the question mark in your head. What if you are thinking, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Then ask the question.
Well, and that was the context of my conversation with the client because I'm like, listen, just because your boss is your boss does not mean that they are always clear.
Right.
You as a leader, are you always clear? And of course, the client immediately said, no. I said, okay, well, neither is your boss.
Right.
And it doesn't matter who they are. So do you think your boss wants to have a meeting with the leadership team and give marching orders and have people leave confused? Do you think that's the objective? No, that's never the objective. That's never the objective.
No, they want clarity and they want to get it done.
But, and here's the thing, you're a processor.
Yeah.
Client is a self-professed processor.
Yeah.
In the moment, seems pretty clear. Get back to my office, start thinking about what the city manager has asked me for, and now I got some questions. This is what started the whole conversation. Okay, when you've got those questions, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
They don't go. They don't go to the city manager. They try to maneuver around and figure out a way, and turns out there's quite a few folks doing this. And I'm like, what do we owe our leader? Do we owe our leader okay, we had this meeting and I thought I had it, but now I got to looking at it. Do you mind if I ask a few questions? Because I want to give you what you want.
Yes.
I said,
I want knowledge and understanding to give you the best product on the outcome. And Randy, to your point, I think it's really important here. When I talked about trust is critical. You have to believe that that person has your best interest at heart and the best interest of the city. We're all trying to accomplish a specific goal for the good of the group, for the good of council, for the good of leadership, for the good of our city, and for the good of whoever's department is impacted. That has to be top consideration. This is what I found. If they are high ego, like really high ego, they're the smartest person in the room. You can ask questions, but I certainly wouldn't ask too many because high ego, they're going to feel like they already know how to do it and they want to tell you. They don't want you asking questions because they believe what they believe to be true and best. So you have to know your audience, one. Number two is if you trust somebody and you have a leader that is genuine, that is authentic, that is transparent, those are going to generate the best conversations. Because when you say, hey, I've got a few clarifying questions, do you mind if I ask those to make sure I'm understanding what we're wanting to achieve? They are almost always going to want that for you because they want your success. It's not about them. And so when we look at those things, that's where the best conversations come from, in my mind, where you can serve up because you can, even in hard times, if they're doing something and you see a big problem in the approach, with great leaders, you can say, I hear what you're wanting to accomplish. Have we thought about blah, blah, blah? And if they say, yeah, I thought about that, but here's why I was thinking I would do it this way. Again, you're getting clarity of their thinking, of their strategy, of their understanding. Those are critical. And the best conversations happen with the high performing leaders who have your best interest at heart and the city's best interest at heart in the case of our podcast for city government leadership. But it's kind of this combination. You have to know your audience. And it's interesting because the high performing leaders that you're talking with, when you're trying to lead up, they will embrace that dialogue typically. They'll also tell you, I got 5 minutes. We can't cover that now. Schedule time with me and let's talk about it. That's a great point, or whatever the case is. So they're going to make you feel valued and important. They're going to be transparent. All of those things help both of us. It helps them think from another perspective or an optic maybe they didn't look through. It helps you understand what they need so you can get them what they need and be a high contributor in a high performing team. Without those factors, if they're not transparent, if they're high ego, if they're the smartest person in the room, you're not going to have very many conversations in my opinion, to manage up because they don't think they need it. And I'd be interested on your thoughts.
Well, some of, my experience with high performers, which is exclusively what I do. These are the people that I work with. And there's a big factor prevalent among all of us. And I'm willing to throw myself in that population group. We want to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Everything's figure outable.
Yeah, we just want to figure it out. And so in the case with this client, I could tell what was going on. And of course, I've got context and I know, and I'm painting with a broad brush here today for confidentiality reasons. But you're sitting there and you just want to figure it out. And so what you end up doing is you end up second guessing the boss. So the boss has given this thing and there's frustration because I thought I understood it, but now after the fact, I'm looking at it and I'm not really sure I understand it, but I'm not going to the boss. I'm going to peers and I'm going to other people and I'm trying to figure this out on my own, which it is a bit of a curse in my experience with high performers because we tackle problems. It's what we do. We solve problems. And I don't think sometimes it could be arrogance and conceit, but it's not always, and that we don't want help, but it can be difficult for high performers to ask for help.
Yeah. Up
to and including asking the boss for some clarification of something. But
that's where the trust in the relationship comes into play. It only takes once or twice. If you get cut down, you've got your answer. They're not interested.
But like you in your conference call, asking people and then getting people saying, I don't have a clue what we're talking about. Unless somebody's got the courage to do that. Now, thankfully, you as a leader had the courage to stop, hit pause and go, okay, guys, are we all on the same page here? And clearly we're not. Okay, well, when that doesn't happen, the Abilene paradox kicks in. We all end up taking a trip to Abilene, and we didn't want to go. Nobody wanted to go there, including the boss.
Well, it helps us solve together. I have a clear understanding that nobody is understanding. And the instructor, the consultant in this case, also has a clear understanding that what they're telling them is not making sense. So both of us have a problem. And it's not going to end
exactly. Well, and
at the end of the day, I want a successful launch. We're 4 months away. If we aren't that close now, let's figure it out as a team. There is no blame. You know me. I'm not a blamer. Let's find the solution to this. I am not going to blame them. Now, did I do corrective conversations? I did. I had some conversations because when I had called people out on that particular call and they did not respond to me because it was virtual and they're not on camera. And I'm a big proponent. I don't force it always unless I can force it. Mm-hmm. But I tell them you need to be on camera and be present on the virtual calls. And present meaning engaged. Don't turn your
Paying
camera
attention.
on. Don't have your camera on, but not your video showing. It's just your
Right.
little symbol
Yeah,
and your
your
name,
icon.
because you
Right.
can then go get emails and everything else and go
Yeah.
get up and walk around and nobody
right.
knows.
That's right.
But when I called them out, I called out 5 people and nobody responded. Then I talked to the director because that was one of the names I called out. And I'm not going to place blame. I don't know. They could have had an emergency. They could have had anything. But I did go and talk to her the next day and say, hey, this happened. She wasn't aware because she wasn't on the call. She had stepped away from her desk.
Yeah.
Right? Legitimately so, which is
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But I told her in that case, I would hop off the call
Right.
and rejoin when you're available. And let's talk to your team and make sure they understand we need high engagement. This is this team that is struggling because of the consultant turnover. We've got to have people engaged and brave.
Yep.
Be brave and bold is what I always say. Be brave and bold. Ask the questions. I don't care if it makes any one of us look like we should know more or shouldn't know more or whatever the case is. We have an accountability to make the best product at the end of the day for this city. And if I wasn't on there, where would this have gone? I need your team to lead. You are a director. You don't have an assistant director, but you have another person. The point being, I did some corrective action and got them to take action through me being willing to ask the naive questions. We're able to solve for a problem that exists for the entire team. And at the end of the day, it produces a better product. It produces clarity, and it creates a high performing team because we're all in it together. And you've got to be willing to do that, to your point, whether you're serving up or whether you're serving out or whether you're serving down to a subordinate. We're in it for each other, and we have to have each other's best interest at heart at the end of the day.
Well, I'm going to squeeze in a final thought. That's a good mic drop moment, but I got to squeeze in a final thought because it's in my proposal to Grand Prairie, in my proposal to any client that I work with. At the bottom is going to be a happiness guarantee. And I picked that up over 40 years ago from a guy that, I kind of sort of got to know, and a sales trainer kind of a guy. And I remember him saying 40 years ago, guys, do you want your wife to be happy or satisfied? So we're not looking for customer satisfaction. We're looking for customer happiness. And I bring that up because with husbands and wives, as you and Don, and as long as y'all been married, as long as Rhonda and I have been married, Don can't read your mind any more than I can read Rhonda's mind. We've got fair ideas. We know your preferences and stuff. But if we want that level of happiness, if we don't want just mere satisfaction, and I don't know any high performer that wants their boss to I want my boss to be satisfied with my work. Says no high performer ever.
No.
I want my boss to be happy with my work. And if that's what we want, and I'm not equating an employee-employer relationship to a marriage, except in this sense of communication. And to your point, it's give and take. Mm-hmm. So if she says something and I misunderstand it and I deliver what I think she wants, but not really what she wants, I haven't hit the mark.
Right.
I haven't hit the mark. And it could be partly on her and it could be partly on me. Again, to your point, who cares? It's not a blame game thing.
Right.
And that was my point with the client. If you're trying to grow, doesn't your boss deserve the opportunity to grow too?
Right.
If the boss is communicating something to a group of people and broadly speaking, to your point in your conference call, and pretty much the room is not following it, fault of the person conducting the call? Not necessarily. There's other circumstances at play.
Right.
But they're not completely blameless. Mm-hmm. So who cares?
We all play a part.
Exactly, but who cares?
In the success of the group.
The point of it is for us to be on the same page so that we can deliver this expectation that we all uniformly agree we want to go to Abilene. Okay, then let's all get in the car and go to Abilene. But if we don't want to go to Abilene, why
Somebody speak up.
Yeah, why in the Sam Hood are we going to Abilene? So And courage, to your point, is a huge part of it. And I'll give you the last word.
No, I think you've covered it. I think so much of it is collaborative conversation, being honest, the truth teller, as you mentioned. It really does have a positive impact if done well. If we are truly have each other's best interest at heart and you deliver it carefully and appropriately, typically, you've taught me through questions, just ask a question to gain clarity. It benefits the whole room, and the air in the room, the oxygen in the room is expanded, right? The smartness of the room has been expanded. We have to be willing to have courage for the betterment of the group.
Thanks for watching and listening to Grow Great, the City Government Leadership Podcast. Our website is growgreat.com. For Lisa Norris, I'm Randy Cantrell. We hope you'll subscribe to the show, and we hope you'll tell a friend.